Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast, podcast number 191. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Saturday, October the 17th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. The topic of today's podcast is kind of a follow-up from podcast 190, and that was the interview that I did in Death Valley National Park with Ben Castle from the Panamint Springs Resort. My little place in heaven, my solitude place, the place where I go to reboot, to unwind, to recharge, use whatever term you want. But I'm going to go ahead and continue on that same vein where to talk a little bit about the trip I did to the desert last week, what I did, what I accomplished, why that's important to other people, to everybody, really, in my opinion. And actually, the topic of today's podcast is how clutter clouds the lucid mind, and how getting away from the 9 to 5, the daily drag, the rat race, really does reboot your computer, reboot your brain, do whatever you want. I suspect that most of you who listen to this podcast also do something with computers, okay, or your phone, or which is really a computer, okay. And as you know, after you use it for a extended length of time without turning it off, it becomes slow. It becomes unresponsive. It does not work correctly. It doesn't do what it's supposed to do efficiently, or maybe not at all. So what do you have to do? It's kind of simple. You turn it off, let it rest for a minute, and then you turn it back on. And magically, usually magically, things just come back to life. They're like they used to be. It's like it's brand new. That is something that we all need to do, that you need to do. And it's not just suggested. It's just not something that's a good idea. It's something that is absolutely, positively necessary for success. You must clear the clutter in order to have your mind be lucid enough to make the right decisions to get you where you need to be in your life. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit, and I'm going to start with something that you may think has nothing to do with the importance of life or clearing your mind or whatever, but bear with me because I will get there. And it has to do with Major League Baseball, okay? And the Major League Baseball playoffs, which the trophy wife and I have been watching. Good television, if you're a baseball fan, that is, and we are, okay? To me, sometimes Major League Baseball, the playoffs are more entertaining for me if our beloved St. Louis Cardinals are not in the playoffs. Reason being is you can actually concentrate on the beauty of the game, not rooting for your guys to do the right thing to win the game, okay? So in some ways it's better. And I know baseball in some respects is not as popular as some of the other sports. We just recently got finished with the NBA playoffs. I will say this, though. Arguably, the NBA playoffs are the most exciting moment in sports because you've got the top athletes competing at a top level. And quite frankly, through most of the regular season, many of them just phone it in, but they don't do that during the playoffs. But the NBA playoffs this year turned into a social justice warrior infomercial, okay? And I'll tell you what it did. Last year, during the NBA playoffs, Toronto Raptors against the Golden State Warriors, who were from the Bay Area. So two rather minor market teams, which nobody wanted that. Everybody wants New York. Everyone wants Philadelphia. Everyone wants Miami. Everyone wants Los Angeles, the Chicago, the big markets, the markets where most of the people are. San Francisco Bay Area, Toronto isn't even in the United States. So the ratings were not that great in 2019. Only 18 million people watched the NBA Finals, which is a lot of people, but From previous years, not so many. This year was a whole lot better, though, right? Because you had the LA Lakers, the premier team, okay, in the largest metro area in the country. Yeah, it's bigger than New York City if you consider all of Southern California, against the Miami Heat, who Miami's a big market too, okay? You know how many people watched the NBA Finals this year? 5 million. That's it. That's less than a third that watched last year, okay? Less than a third that watched that year. In fact, closer to a sixth that watched last year. And last year was not a good year. And it all had to do with the fact that the NBA players decided to play the social justice warrior card. And sports are a release. They're entertainment, okay? They are something that really people watch to smile about, to get away from the rigors of the world, not to involve themselves in it, okay? And baseball didn't do that so much. So for me anyway, baseball is much more entertaining to watch. So let me continue. Sure, our Cardinals made it to the playoffs, but probably shouldn't. In fact, 4 of the 6 teams in the National League Central made it. The Cardinals, the Reds, the Cubs, and the Brewers. 4 of them made it to the playoffs, okay? The Cardinals were the only team to actually even win a game in the playoffs. The Cubs, the Brewers, the Reds did not even win a game. In fact, the Reds didn't even score a run. That's how bad the division was, okay? But they just weren't that good, but this year was a different year. Some people say, well, the Cardinals aren't any good because they're a cheap team. Well, they're not a cheap team, but they're a poor judge of talent. They have a bad hitting ball club and recently got rid of players named Luke Voit, Marcell Ozuna, and Randy Arozarena. Luke Voit led the major leagues in home runs this year. Marcell Ozuna led the National League in home runs this year and RBIs. But, of course, Ozuna's he's kind of a delicate player, doesn't play that often. That's why they didn't want him, because they're afraid he would play hurt. Oh, and by the way, he had more plate appearances than anybody in the National League. And Randy Arozarena, let's just say that if the Tampa Bay Rays win the pennant, Randy Arozarena will be the he'll be the MVP. That's how good a year he's had, okay? And he was a Cardinal, and they threw him in he was just a throw-in player with the Tommy Pham trade last year. But why do I even lead with this story, okay? What does baseball and sports have anything to do with clearing the clutter that clouds the lucid mind? Well, sports is a release. Sports is entertainment. Sports is the circus in the bread and circus, which we all need to get by, at least according to the Caesars of Rome. It's important to have your circus. It's important to have your entertainment. It's important to have your release. And the reason being is because the outcome of a sporting event, it really doesn't matter. It's kind of like the ending of a story book. If you read a book and the way it ends doesn't affect your life, you may be disappointed, you may be happy, but then you move on. The same with a movie. Let's say a movie ends in a stupid way. Oh, well, so what? Maybe you wasted 2 hours of your life, but it's just 2 hours. A ball game's the same way. It's not a big deal. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, okay? Then lather, rinse, repeat, you do it all next year. It does not affect the big scheme of things, whoever wins, whoever loses, okay? It's almost like, so what? Did you enjoy yourself while you watched it? If the answer is yes, watch it again. If no, then find something else to do. There are other things, important things in life, not so much. The outcome really does matter. Sports, get them next year. No big deal. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, right? In life, it's not that way. Life is important, or things in life, I should say. The outcome of things in life are important on how they affect you. Your job, the investments that you make, choosing a spouse, how you raise your children, making, losing, keeping friendships and other relationships. Okay, these are all things that matter greatly. If you make the wrong call in life, the effect is telling, and it can affect you for the rest of your life. For example, if you pick the wrong spouse and you have children with him or her, and I'll just say her because I'm a man, okay? You pick the wrong spouse. You have 2 children with her. Then you find out that that train wreck that you married isn't as attractive as you thought, and you get divorced. Well, here's the deal. You think it's hard to write a check for one household? Try writing a check for 2 households. But that's okay. You've divorced that lady, and you don't have anything to do with her for the rest of your life, right? Wrong, because you've had children with her. And she will be in your life as long as your children are in your life, because she is the mother of your children. See how that works out? Now, if the Cardinals sign the wrong free agent, no big deal. They won't win a championship, and it's not a big deal at all. In fact, if the Cardinals never win another World Series, how does that really affect you? Really? Not much. Maybe you'll sour on them and you won't go see them at the stadium anymore, okay? Or you won't watch them on television. But you'll do something else. Maybe you'll watch a different sporting event. Maybe you'll take up pinochle. Maybe who knows what you'll do, okay? You'll do something else because it's just a sporting event. It's really not important. All those other things, yeah, they're really, really important. They're extremely important. They're unbelievably important. Another thing that's not as important as you think it might be, and I'm going to say this, and you people are going to say, Strong, what the heck are you thinking about? What are you saying? You must be insane. I've never heard you talk this way before. And maybe not, but maybe I've become wiser. Maybe I've not become so wise. Maybe I'm losing it upstairs. But people are freaking out about this upcoming election. They really are. In fact, they're freaking out about this upcoming election like I've never seen before. Now, what have you heard? And we're talking mainly presidential election, but if you watch the ads, it's the senatorial or the Congress election, the congressional elections, the gubernatorial elections, it's all the elections, okay? This is the most important election ever, and you've all heard that, okay? And I will say that maybe it is until the next one. Because if you think about it, aren't they all the most important elections ever? And I'm going to share something with you because I disagree with that statement, and I'm going to tell you why. Saying this is the most important election ever is like saying, remember that television show called Blossom? It was about a teenage girl growing up, okay? I don't know that I ever watched it, but I just thought it was a dopey show, so I never watched it, but it was kind of popular with some people. It was good, mindless TV. And I saw an advertisement for the television show Blossom once upon a time. And they were serious as they could be as they were reporting this show. And they said, tomorrow night, be sure to see an important episode of Blossom. It's must-see TV. It's an important episode. A television show is never important. It's not important, okay? It's not important at all. And the election, I think, is kind of the same way. Not that the election is not important. Not that you should discard it, because I'm not saying that at all. Not that you shouldn't vote, because you certainly should after doing your research. But here's the thing. If you're pro-Trump, the left has canceled you. They're not going to listen to a thing that you say. If you're pro-Biden, the right has canceled you. They're not going to listen to a thing that you say. Now, say that this election really isn't the most important election ever, as I have said to people. Guess what? Everybody cancels you. All you have to do is suggest that, you know what? maybe this isn't the most important